Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our special 15th anniversary featuring our very own Dato Alvin John as our guest. I'm Sharon, a senior legal associate here at Alvin John and Partners.
I'm Isaac, I'm a paralegal here.
We're delighted to be your moderators here today. Of course, we have our guest of honor, Dato Alvin John. Dato, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, it's an honor to have you, Dato. And we trust all of you watching this will just find this session really enriching, enlightening, and we hope you'll be valuable to your personal and professional life.
That's right. Now, before we begin, I think it would be interesting for all of us to get to know Dato a little better.
My name, I saw your name. Actually, a few
We have some rapid fire questions for you. Dato, you don't know the questions.
Okay.
This is going to be spontaneous, so it'll be fun for all of you watching.
Okay.
I think it'll be fun just to get to know Dato a bit better, some casual questions. Dato, you can say the first thing that comes to mind. I'm going to ask you some comparisons, some this or that. You ready?
Okay.
All right, let's go. Pineapples and pizza, yes or no?
Yes, love it.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Summer or winter?
Winter all the time.
Biggest joy in life?
Biggest joy, having children.
Favorite football team?
Manchester United.
Sunrise or sunset?
Sunset.
What's the strangest or weirdest thing you've ever eaten?
Tiger.
That's interesting. Do you prefer the countryside or the city?
City.
Rock or hip hop?
Rock. My era.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee all the way.
Scary movie or a funny movie?
Funny movie.
Movies or series?
Movies.
Favorite thing to do in your free time?
Watch TV.
Do you prefer writing or reading?
Reading.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Now, in terms of cuisines, steak or chicken?
Steak.
Do you prefer to call or to text?
To call.
How would you describe 3 adjectives about yourself?
Oh, okay. I think I'm patient. I think I'm honest with my views. I think I'm also a team player.
I have to agree. Yeah.
Yeah, indeed, definitely. All right, I guess that's the last one. That was fun. Thanks, Dato, for letting us know your preferences. I'm sure the audience was entertained.
Let's move on to some questions about your background.
Mhm.
A lot of us know you as Dato managing partner, but sometimes you forget that you were once a student.
Yes.
You had your own experiences as a young lawyer, and I think a lot of us would be interested to know how that was like for you. If you don't mind sharing.
Sure. As a young lawyer or as a student?
There'll be questions on both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll talk about that. Which one would you like me to?
Well, I think we can start with why did you decide to pursue law as a career? I think that's a good question. And did you always want to be a lawyer?
I think for me, I think from maybe the age of 15, I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer. 15, 16. The little experiences I had with my dad was a big influence in my education, my career path. He did not control, but he was a major influence. So he was a person who was very much into into what's happening around the legal fraternity, what's happening in the political world of Malaysia, overseas, things like that. And I sort of captured a lot of what I know from him at a very young age. Of course, at a young age, I was supposed to become a doctor.
Oh, okay.
Which is what our parents those days, they have this idea that being a doctor is the ultimate or the penultimate. I'm not so certain. But over time, I think my mother was a nurse, and my father was a civil servant with the economic planning unit, and eventually he retired from MISC, the shipping. It's a GLC,
right?
And so I grew up in a family where I had first-hand knowledge of how medicine works, and I really couldn't take blood. I used to follow my mother to her clinic,
Yeah,
to GH, and I said that she was in plastic surgery.
I see.
She was a nurse to the plastic surgeon, and I used to watch all those things. And I realized then quickly that medicine is not my thing. But I pursued
Yeah.
my studies in science
Okay.
right up to Form 6.
I see.
But I knew it was not my thing.
Mm.
So eventually what happened is sometime after I finished my Form 5, my dad put me into this particular course, a 4-week course to learn about law. It wasn't actually a foundation course. It was just an introductory course about law. And I did go for that, and I found it so enjoyable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And that's when I think that cemented my ambition to be a lawyer at that point in time, when I finished my Form 5. That I think this is it for me. The enjoyment and the passion was in that field. So hence I pursued I went on to government school in Form 6, and thereafter to come.
wow, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of inspiration, you just said that that was a huge inspiration for you. Has it changed since your days as a fresh graduate? Have you found any other role models since starting practice?
Well, in practice, of course, I look up certain lawyers, and I've always looked up to the late Dato Singh. Not only because of what he represented in court, the way he carried himself. When I used to go to court those days, and he was doing a case, he would wish every individual in court a good morning, how are you doing? This was a man who had the integrity and the respect for lawyers across the board. Whether you're a junior lawyer, whether you're a senior lawyer, he was one of those who had a smile on his face. And you knew from day one, he was not so arrogant. He was not one of those lawyers who thought that they were somebody up there and behaved in that manner. He was not one of those. So I looked up to him, one, for his prowess in court, but more so his integrity as a lawyer and as how he carried himself. That to me played a big role in wanting to be a lawyer, maybe along the same mode. Not so much moving myself up the ladder and forgetting where I come from. So that man played a big role. There were others who were non-lawyers who I found people who eventually became judges. They played a role to teach me about being passionate, being disciplined in what you want to do, and to go into an area of the law where you will want to do it daily. Law is so diversified, and if you start practicing something that you do not enjoy from day one, you will not want to come to work. And when you don't enjoy what you do, it's hard pressing to actually develop yourself as the years go by. So to me, there were other individuals too who were family friends who eventually became judges, who became legal advisors to multinational companies, things like that. So there were others like that. Yes.
I think a lot of people are very interested to know how it was like for you as a young lawyer. When you first became a lawyer, was it something very natural, the traits of a lawyer? And what was difficult? Any difficulties or challenges or barriers would you care to share?
Sure. I mean, I started my pupillage, my chambering in the early 90s, and I joined a fairly large firm, maybe about 20 odd partners then. What was very disappointing then was that at that point in time, I never knew my master for 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Not because we had any adverse relationship. It was just the culture of the firm that they took in pupils, and pupils were there very much in a robotic sense. You're there for a purpose, you're there to do some work. And if along the way you learn anything, you learn it from the lawyers who are there. So there was no real personal relationship. So if you ask me about my pupillage, it didn't really help me decide that the law was the love of my life. I think I decided that before I went into pupillage. But it showed me the other side of the law, where, if you practice that sort of law, you're not going to be able to create a very healthy culture.
Yeah.
So there is a disappointment in terms of not being able to learn anything from my master. So that was a disadvantage. But as time progressed, I think when I went into my first phase of practice with another law firm, would you like me to talk about that? Or?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. My first, I mean, I break up my practice into three different phases. My first initial years of practice, where when I left my pupillage and joined this firm, I joined a legal firm which was very much anti-government. It was a firm which was owned by members of parliament and come lawyers from Semangat 46, which was then very much working with, they had these components in PAS and all the other. And so I had the experience of working with a firm that were doing cases against the government of Malaysia, defamation cases, civil suits, judicial review cases, all of which I was acting for parties of this nature. And my second phase was that after doing all these things, I was then roped in by another law firm called Rashid and Lee. And Rashid and Lee, at the then time, the head of the litigation department was the former Chief Justice, Tun Zaki Azim. And when I was roped in, I was brought in to lead their litigation team as a senior partner. So that in that phase of my life, Rashid and Lee, as you know, the firm was very much the legal advisor to the government of Malaysia. The government of Malaysia. So my role moved from working for pro-opposition parties to governmental parties. Remember, we are lawyers. We are bipartisan when it comes to political affinity or affiliations. And I think that's very important. That when you take on a role as a lawyer, you do not affiliate yourself to a political party, because your ideologies may differ. Or friends today, foe tomorrow. You don't want to mix and mingle those things. So I learned a different set of rules and how to do cases there. I'll come to that in a while. And my third phase is when I set up this practice after I'd left that firm. So there were three phases of my life that eventually led to where we are today. So what stands out in my first phase would be when I can just give you one particular case. In that particular time, there was this group who were deemed to be deviant. There was this group called Al-Arkam. And lo and behold, the senior partner of the firm says, Alvin, you become lead counsel in matters relating to this group, non-Muslim. And I found that a bit, at that time I was young, maybe how am I going to talk to a group where the propaganda was such that they were anti-Islam, anti-Malay, but they were Muslims. This was a community that lived in Taman Tun Dr. Ismail at that time. And in this community, when I went to meet them, since they were clients of the firm, there were doctors, lawyers, engineers. They ran massive, they had their own schools, they had their own supermarkets. But what was happening was, due to the propaganda, this particular group was labeled as anti-Muslim, anti-Islam. And one particular case that stood out in my mind was when they were accused, the doctors that were part of this group were accused of being pencil doctors. And pencil doctors meaning basically they don't touch their patients. They use their pens and pencils to touch. This was an accusation leveled against them those days. So this group approached my firm to be their lawyers. And I said, fine. I mean, I was working with the partners, and eventually the role of lead counsel was landed on my hands. And I was only maybe in my fourth year in practice. And at that time, maybe 3-4 years in practice. So I went and met them. And when I met them, I had a bit of a trepidation because I was a non-Malay, whether they would accept me as their counsel. And they sat with me, they had lunch with me at their commune, and eventually they said they wanted me to act for them. So that to me was already was something that I thought, look, they're not racist.
Yeah.
So that was the first thing that came to my mind. This is not a racist group. They may have their own beliefs, they may have their own culture, their own lifestyle, but I'm just there as a legal person, to look at the issue of defamation suits. But they accepted me, which means they felt that I understood their line of living without criticizing what they do. So I took the case on, and at that time, we took the case against the Malaysian government as well as the General Hospital of Perlis. And that stood out in my mind because, eventually the group was declared deviant and they were banned. And these individuals are all professionals working as judges, lawyers, doctors, and having represented them and successfully represented them in that defamation suit, I felt I will always remember that not to prejudge people. They have their certain lifestyles, but it is not for us lawyers to be judgmental of one's lifestyle, one's behavioral conduct, which is not fitting to your lifestyle. Everyone should respect each other's beliefs.
Yeah.
And whether or not you can be a Christian, you can be a Hindu, you can be a Muslim, every teaching has their own little beliefs.
Yeah.
And you have to find your path and not criticize another path. So that particular case taught me that. And it will always be in my mind that I'll remember that, never to be judgmental. And from a legal angle, the case gave me the exposure to take up these cases and argue those cases with very senior lawyers on the other side at that time. So I was quite happy with that. That will always be in my memory. Of course, when I moved on to my second phase, which I just told you, I had to be senior partner, and I was involved with the government in election petitions. I became Barisan National's legal advisor. I became advisor to UMNO. I became advisor to, because Tun Zaki was also advisor. So when we advised, we also took up legal suits and all that. And one suit that stood up in my mind was another defamation suit in the year 2001, I think, 2001, 2002, where at the then time was Tun Abdullah Badawi was the Prime Minister of Malaysia. And in this suit, Terengganu was then a state that was run by PAS, Party PAS. And Barisan Nasional wanted to gag certain things that were said by election was coming. And Barisan Nasional through UMNO wanted to gag the current president of PAS for certain things that he was saying at the then time. And a defamation suit was filed. That is okay, but for the very first time, we decided to initiate an injunctive order against a political party and the government of the state, which was the state of Terengganu. It was never done before. So I decided, why don't I try this to obtain an injunctive relief against the state of Terengganu and the officials running the state of Terengganu. What stood out in my mind is that when I landed, again, I was tasked to lead the case in Terengganu. I landed in Terengganu, Kuala Terengganu Airport, and there was a host of political officials from the opposition, from the party that I was acting for. But there was also a host of people from the pro-government of Terengganu who were pelting me with water for coming into Terengganu to fight this case at their turf. I mean, I'm not going to judge them. They had their reasons, but that stood out in my mind. As I've never been pelted with water for doing a court case.
First and last, I hope.
That was the first and last. And I didn't even start my case as yet. So we went in, we had this huge adversary and animosity for the case that was going on in Terengganu. It attracted so much attention in Terengganu that eventually when the case finished, which Dutch. And thereafter, that election called. And eventually, the tide turned. The government was changed. In some manner, so to speak, that particular case played a role in the victory at the general elections. So it's not about politics again, it's about the law. And I tried looking at the law from an angle where, why don't we look at an injunction? And it worked. And I think today, many cases are going on for injunctive relief against political parties, political individuals, including state governments, because these individuals represent state governments. And so freedom of speech is important, but freedom of speech to the point of abuse should not be allowed. So I think that case sort of stands out in my mind. Coming to now, I'm talking a lot. Do you guys want to?
No, please.
Okay, then comes to the situation now. The one case that stands out in my mind would always be the case where I represented the Malaysian citizen who, a knighted sir, Malaysian, who happens to own vast businesses in Australia. And in this particular case, the Australian government decided to undertake double taxation against this individual for his income derived from places outside Australia. I mean, he owned assets, vast assets, in 5 different countries, apart from Australia. Him not being a citizen of Australia, him not being a domicile of Australia. His children studied there, but they decided to double tax, which means it's income that he derives from all these places are to be paid to Australia. Although he was a tax resident of Malaysia, what stands out in my mind always in that case was that he then came back to Malaysia and sought Malaysia's help. And the only way I knew how to help him was to initiate a legal action against the Australian government and the Australian tax office in Malaysia. So we took up the case to say that they are breaching his constitutional rights and applying double taxation against an individual of his standing who is not a citizen or not a domicile of that country is unconstitutional. And the Australian government is not allowed to invoke double taxation against him. And the case went on. Unfortunate for us is that we in Malaysia, we recognize this doctrine called sovereign immunity. Basically what it means is that a sovereign country has absolute immunity from prosecution if they choose to invoke it by virtue of Malaysia being a signatory to that certificate. So they decided not to fight the case on merits, but to hide behind the blanket of immunity. So when they appeared in court, they did appear in court through their counsels and whatever not, they invoked sovereign immunity. Of course, Malaysia being a signatory to that immunity was not able to help our citizen. But that to me was very important, because if it could happen to him, it could happen to any citizen of Malaysia wanting to study there, wanting to work there, and then, or it could even happen to us buying properties over there. And then they decide, since you own a property over there, you're now liable to pay whatever taxes you for income derived in Malaysia, despite you being a tax resident in Malaysia. So these things, I thought, to me was it is actually an abuse of someone's freedom of rights to earn and to live in the right way. So unfortunately, the case didn't take its full course, where we could have decided whether it was constitutional for a foreign government to do this to a Malaysian citizen. Unfortunate, but that's the law as it stands today. And I think one day, I hope that sovereign immunity has its limitations. It cannot simply be applied to citizens of another country, and countries hiding behind immunity to hold themselves non-accountable. I think that should not have been the case. So that stands out in my mind always, because the publicity of that case opened the eyes of the public. It was picked up by most newspapers that, we have to be careful. When we go to an alien country, we must make ourselves clear as to what our standing in that country is. They can offer you credit cards, they can offer you attractive packages to do business in that country, they can offer you business or investment opportunities. But remember that sometimes if you don't read the fine lines, you don't read the law over there, You can be caught as a tax resident. You never know. So that stood out in my mind. So there are 3 cases I've just given you. Cases. There are many more, but these are things which stands out not because of the publicity. It's simply because that there are certain things in those cases will always be in my mind. So when I did the first case and when I was younger, what I realized is that I should never believe what people say when I was young about somebody else. Just because he's labeled as such, it doesn't mean he's one of those. It doesn't mean he's a bad person. It means that, there's always ways to look at things. There's 2 sides of the coin. So let's not be judgmental. In this current multinational society, we shouldn't be. The second case taught me about the fact that what happened in the adventure that went through it, but it taught me that that our judiciary is not as impartial. Is impartial. When you argue a case and you argue it properly, political influence doesn't play a role. As much as people think it does, you may have 1 rotten egg, but 9 of it is good. But don't label because of one particular situation, everything is rotten. That's not how things are. So we should all have a very rational mindset when it comes to dealing with the system in our country.
Dato, your practice has spanned over 3 decades. From what you just told us, how would you say what was your motivation in staying in practice for that long? Did you find anything interesting in practice that kept you going?
30 years. 30 years is a long time to do the same thing day in, day out. Well, I always, for me, number one, being a lawyer or being any profession, but whether you're a doctor, engineer, lawyer, or anything for that matter, the primary consideration is passion. So if you have the passion and if you wake up every morning wanting to do that particular thing, and you have that passion, you're driven to come to work. You're driven to try and improve yourself. You're driven to try and improve your firm that you're with. You're also driven to try and expand your skills. But starting point is passion. You need the passion, the discipline, and the commitment. If you don't have one or the other, then time to think about another profession. It's only fair, because you don't want to come to work and think, I'm doing this because I need the money. I'm doing this because I have no choice. But that wouldn't take you far. Your mindset should never be short term. It should be long term. And as a young lawyer, and I didn't come from a family of wealth. I just mentioned to both of you that my mom and dad were government servants. So we had to work hard to get where we are. So, but that is not an excuse. That should only give you the incentive to work harder to achieve what you want in life. So for me, if you have the passion, the starting point is passion. If you don't have the love for the law, one day you will find yourself stagnated. And if you start blaming the whole world except yourself, there won't be sympathy, because you have not shown the passion for the field that you have chosen to enter. So passion comes from a few ways of looking at it. One is your own personal enjoyment, that when you take up a case, you actually enjoy doing it. Not because it's your work. My God, this is something I want to do. I would like to see the ends of justice. Win or lose is another thing. You're not gods. We're not gods. We play the role of an advocate and solicitor. We have to do everything we can for our client. And the clients are not like, they're not blinded by the fact that you must win the case. They know you do your best, they're happy with you. So to me, if you have the passion, you will have the discipline and the commitment to do your utmost for the client. So passion is the first thing I would look at.
I think myself and many others watching, we're young lawyers, we're young people looking for advice, myself included. And if I'm not mistaken, that's something very passionate about. So we have quite a few questions from young people asking advice. The first one being, what do you think are the current challenges for young people and young lawyers, and how can they overcome it?
Okay, in this current era where we have millennials like yourselves, as they call themselves, the concerns of individuals, what I see, look, I'm only giving you my personal views. You may disagree with me or not. A large number of young millennials are looking to careers that will pay them a hell of a lot of money. They want a quick fix to life, which means it's very short term. I'm not looking 5 years, 7 years. I'm looking today. So it is when you have an idea that my priority is financials, meaning I will look for the job that pays me the most money. Or if I'm a lawyer, I will look for the firm that pays me the most money. That by itself wouldn't prioritize what you are as a person. It prioritizes your material needs. Yeah. So what happens then? Which I see it's quite rampant for the last 10 years or so. That society is dictated by money, and lawyers within that category, young lawyers especially, they look for careers that offer them the most money. But it's short term. When you look for a career that offers you a lot of money, more than what you're paid in another firm, the expectations of the employer is also higher. The expectations, and sometimes the expectations can lead to negative repercussions. For instance, bosses tend to believe that if I'm paying you X amount of money, I expect X plus 10 times more than that in terms of your value. Firms, it is something that's a reality. That when you walk in and say that I want to join that firm because it's paying me so much, then you realize the working culture is a bit of doesn't agree with your own culture. There's no harmony. There's no there's bullying. There's harassment. Harassment takes many forms. And then there's a situation where your bosses don't speak to you. They walk past you as though you're not, you don't exist. You're one of those characters where you have to work. An expectation that you have to be in the office late at nights. These are things I'm hearing from young lawyers, And then when I start to dissect why is this happening to this particular individual, or why is the firm culture in this manner, you can't just blame one party for that, because it takes two to tango, right? Whilst, yes, I agree, firms have to take some fault, but come on, you are an individual who's a professional. You shouldn't succumb yourself or your integrity or your career to that level. If you know once you're inside that firm or inside any company where the company practices harassment, harassment can be many forms of harassment, sexual, bullying, indirect harassment by treating you, making you stay late in the office, coming over weekends. Words that are used on you could be also derogatory, abusive, brash. So all these things can form harassment. But what happens if it's a mental anguish on young lawyers in their 20s? What have I gotten myself into? And then you want to come out, it's hard. But you got to be certain. As young lawyers, you got to have a plan. In my view, a young lawyer coming out must say, for instance, if you want to go into a firm, my way of doing things is you look at the person, you look at your master, find out as much information about him. It's not difficult. The legal fraternity, no doubt, we have about 20,000 odd lawyers. It's not difficult for you to do a bit of homework. Not just look at the size of the firm, be it small, large, or medium, how beautiful it is. No, it's not that. It's about how you want to progress your career path. So as young lawyers, primarily, I would go and look at the person running the firm. What sort of culture that he practices in the firm, and whether that culture is something that I would fit in. It's not difficult to know. It's not difficult for you to spend a bit of time on that. Once you know that, then you decide, okay, second issues would be to see how would I fit in into the firm in terms of what I want to do. whether I want to be in litigation, corporate, conveyancing, look at their work culture. Interview should be a two-way process. A lot of students forget that. A lot of young lawyers forget that. That when you sit in an interview, you are there to also ask questions.
Yeah.
Because it's your life.
Yeah. We've gotten feedback when a lot of lawyers
Yeah.
have been in firms for long periods of time, and they've been unhappy about the firm that they've been working in. What is your advice to a young lawyer if they feel that they're unhappy in the firm that they're working in?
Unhappy in what sense, Sharon?
Unhappy in terms of the work culture, in terms of the workload, the type of practice areas they're working in, or simply because of monetary reasons as well.
Okay. We leave aside monetary reasons for a while.
Okay.
Let's look at work culture that will affect your personal life.
Yeah.
This is my views again. People may differ with me.
Yeah.
When your personal life is affected because of the stress that the job brings to you, that stress will also eventually affect your health. Number one.
Yeah.
Number two, it will also affect your family, because your family sees you in a situation where either you're depressed or you are unhealthy, falling sick, or you are in a situation where you're always worried to wake up in the morning and go to work. Like I mentioned earlier, like what you mentioned also, when you feel that your boss is a tyrant, who's always on your back for no apparent reason, it's very hard for you to wake up in the morning and go to work. It's very hard. So it affects you as a person. It affects your family because you have parents and siblings who would be worried for you. And number three, you know for a fact that this is not the right fit. But as you said rightly, some of them are too afraid to confront their bosses to say, look, I'm facing this problem. Now, again, I would say two things here. If you're afraid, there must be an avenue for you to speak up, right? I would think that families play a big role in this. You need to talk to somebody. As young lawyers, you must be able to communicate your grievance or your problems, because before you go into the next step of having a depressive situation, talk to somebody, maybe a sibling, maybe your parents, maybe a colleague in the office, who will be able to understand where you come from. And sometimes they can give you a good feedback. Now, if that doesn't resolve the problem, then you have to go to a higher authority. I'm an advocate for the bar, actually doing something about this, playing a bigger role, not just opening the channels to say, if you need counseling, come and see me. I think the bar should play a bigger role by making it compulsory for law firms to provide mandatory feedback of how they treat their employees, of how employees think of their legal firms. We have policies now, compliance policies by Bank Negara, for us to declare how do we operate our clients' accounts, clients' feedback in terms of how we run their money. It's good. It's regulatory. So Bank Negara plays an important intervention so that money laundering is decreased. Why can't the bar play a bigger role of having law firms and lawyers provide feedbacks on their law firms? And then when they see a problem from these feedback, they will engage. Sometimes, as what you said correctly, young lawyers have fears. They are so afraid to go and talk to their bosses for fear that they will be removed due to monetary reasons. But these are ways of handling it. Because at the end of the day, the bosses must be held accountable, but the lawyers must also have a responsibility, young or old. So I think the Bar Council must play a bigger role. But at the same time, I wish to see lawyers maybe a bit more courageous. Again, I put monetary reasons as secondary to your health, secondary to your well-being, not just your well-being, your family's well-being too. So if you prioritize it properly, you will walk in with a clear mind. The moment you see or even sense that this is the place where I'm going to have these problems, either you address it and confront it with your bosses, and you feel that after confrontation, it's not going to be resolved, walk out. Walk out and find a healthier ground to work in. That would be my advice. There's no two ways about it now.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can't change the stripes of a tiger. They're there for life.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've also got a lot of questions about just your career in general, and also issues that the legal field faces. So we're going to try and answer as many as we can, but any extra, we might have to do a second session.
Okay.
But I think something a lot of people ask is, what was your most challenging moments in your legal career, and how did you overcome that?
The lows, the most challenging. I think I would have, if you, on hindsight, I would have loved to have my parents around when I was in the up and coming as a lawyer. Unfortunate for me, my parents passed away before I reached the level where I thought they would have been proud to see where I am. So that would have been something that I'm disappointed that I did not have my parents with me, because much of where I am today is because of them, and I owe them what I have achieved so far. In terms of lows, I from a working aspect, I found that as what many lawyers are facing today, when you achieve a certain level of success in your field, whether you're a practicing litigator or a corporate lawyer, as a young lawyer, you will always be faced with a situation where you are begrudged, where senior partners, senior lawyers feel threatened and insecure by your rise. And that was very apparent for me, because I think I appeared in the federal court in my third year in practice. Wow. I was already there at that level.
Yeah.
So I sort of moved too fast, maybe not by want or not by me volunteering.
Yeah.
It was just that my firm thought I was able to do it. So they gave me that platform, and I took that platform. I'm not professing to be a prolific litigator. I'm just saying that I had the chance and I took it. I'm not blowing my own trumpet here.
Yeah.
I don't want to look in that manner too. But the fact is, when you achieve something, and then you have your bosses, you have in hierarchy in a legal firm, you have pupils, lawyers, senior associates, partners, and whatnots. So the hierarchy may, in some ways along the way, there be some of them not very happy, or threatened, or insecure, and that to me was a low, because whilst I enjoyed my term in my first firm, which was smaller in size, I found that to be an apparent problem there. This is an honest view. I may be wrong now, but that was what I felt. My second firm was a bigger firm. At that time, we were the top 4 firms in the country, and we were large. We had close to 24, 25 partners, and I was heading the litigation department, and we had about 70 lawyers. So it was a large firm, practicing in different areas. But there can only be one captain that steers the ship. It's very difficult when you're sitting with 20 partners, having to understand and deal with different cultures, different mindset in terms of work culture, different mindsets in terms of how to treat employees. So I found that a bit dampening. That whilst it's nice to show the world that you are a large firm, a one-stop center, you as you see today, many of these large firms crumble, not for anything, simply because not in unison. And I saw that in my own practice. So to me, that was a low, because I always feel that when you have partners, or when you work in an environment of a legal firm, they become your second family. And to me, when I saw those things happening, I sort of was very disappointed that I can't change the culture here. I can't change the mindset of people, because there's 20 of us. It's too big a group to change. So, like you see what's happening here, I always advocated team play. I've always advocated every one of you here treats the firm as friendly as possible, like a family. and my doors are always open. Because, if the firm is happy, the firm prospers.
Yeah.
And it's not all about the money. It's also about the fact that you want to come and work here and you think that this is a firm that will give you the platform to progress. So that has to be a criteria. And that was the criteria I practiced.
There are also a lot of people that are wondering what your favorite practice areas are.
Oh, okay.
And also in terms of what kind of areas you specialize in as an
Yeah.
advocate and solicitor. Maybe you want to share it with us?
Sure. I mean, I never wanted to be a criminal lawyer. Not because I didn't like criminal law. I think most students loved criminal law.
Yeah.
And it was one area of the law where everyone enjoyed.
Very
at least,
interesting.
it's interesting enough to do. But to do criminal law, you have to also understand that, you take up cases where your conscience must be very clear. If you lose a case, you do not take it personal. Where somebody is hanged or sent to jail. Someone's liberty, life is affected. So you must be able to live with it. If you're not, then don't do it. And I did not have that particular sense of ability to be able to represent a person whom I knew was guilty when I knew he was guilty. So you need to have that, draw that line. If you can't do that, don't do it. What I was good at in university was always company law. I sort of excelled in that with evidence. So I always thought I would do that. But when I came back and started my practice after my pupillage, I started to enjoy litigation a lot. And then I realized that I could mix and match both corporate with litigation. And that opportunity was given to me in the first and second firm. And I'm very thankful for that, because the opportunity was there for me to expand my career using the tools that I learned. And with that, if you ask me today, what is my preferred choice of law, it would be corporate litigation. I enjoy that a lot.
I think, naturally a lot of young people are looking for mentors, looking for guidance. Your managing partner, my superior, our boss, what are the qualities of a good and effective senior? And how do you manage to keep under you well?
I'm sorry, repeat the last part.
Manage very well. No, but really, I think it's I've been here for a while now, and I can say it firsthand, and it's something that I think interests me and for Sharon as well.
Agreed. Yes. Dato, as a senior associate myself, I'm wondering, and I'm interested to know, what are the good qualities a senior should have in order to be able to manage their juniors and working people under it?
Communication. Communication to me is very important. There must be communication between you and your peers, you and your downliners. If you don't have that communication between them and you will never know what they need in terms of not just about work. It's also about their lifestyle at home. You need to communicate to understand the character of an individual. One cannot study an individual without having a form of relationship. So to me, communication is number one. Always open the doors to communication. Number two, I think whilst work is important, play is important, always ensure that you have in mind that whilst they are good people, they also have a functionality to the firm. Because without the firm, they won't have a job to work on. So professionalism is also important to ensure that that you can inculcate to yourself and to what they say, it's leadership by example. If you have the characteristics of a leader, it will flow to the junior. He who comes to your firm will learn how you practice your culture in the firm. One day he will emulate you in the way he or she works, in the way you speak, in the way you go to court and present your cases. So it's important that as leaders, everyone is a leader at a certain level. Whether you're a junior lawyer, senior lawyer, one man doesn't run the show. I can't run the show without all of you. When you're a junior lawyer, you're still entrusted with files. Now, when you are entrusted with file, you are the file manager. You are the frontliner with the client. You need to ensure the client is happy with your work. You need to ensure that your bosses are also happy with your work. So you see the role, you play a role of a leader, but you also play a role of ensuring that the firm is protected and you follow the culture of the firm. So to me, it starts with me, of course, in my firm, but I believe in team effort. So whilst I will lead, I will also assign leaders within the project that I'm doing. And that in that way, everyone will feel involved.
Correct.
Everyone does feel that they have contributed in some manner, so to speak, to that project. And it's an achievement, because when you do something in that way, it's actually a group effort. One man cannot say I did everything without the other. So in my mind, if you ask me how to be a good leader, number one, don't be a dictator. Dictatorial methods of running companies or even businesses, law firms, the days have gone. It was once practiced in Malaysia, maybe still practiced by some individuals, but those methods of running law firms, not fruitful. It's not helpful to you, not helpful to your employees. Number two, communication. You have to show them by your words and your conduct that this is how I like the culture to be. The culture of a law firm. You decide the culture and they will practice the culture. That's how I think it should be. And number three, find the right people. You as a leader, you have to be able to lay back and say, would he or she fit into my firm, or fit into what I want of him in this firm? Then you go into you have the right fit, your firm cannot go wrong. And in this time and age, I think we are in a service providing industry. Apart from practicing the nobility of the profession, we are a service provider. So that service provider must be able to cater to the client that he or she works with. So it's important for you to build interpersonal skills, to build trust issues, and also to ensure your people working around you can work with you. You have one individual playing Lone Ranger or trying to discredit another, that the team breaks.
Dato, what's next for you? Where do you see yourself in, say, the next 10, 15 years?
I would love to say that I would like to retire at 60 or 65, but I don't think I can. I don't think my nature is such that I can sit at home and do gardening.
Golf.
I don't think that's me. Once I enjoy hobbies, I don't think it can be my full-time job, so to speak. So I think I would like to work as long as my health permits. I would love to, because I wake up in the morning and I still enjoy what I do. The day I feel that I don't want to go back to work because I'm tired of work, or it's time I retire and do something else, then I'll do it. I would do it. I wouldn't think twice about it. I am involved in so many other things apart from legal work. I do advisory work. I have friends in business, but this is still my passion. So for as long as the passion is there and still burning, I would remain in practice.
I think a few of us always talk, and you're a very good teacher, so we always joke that you'd be a really good lecturer eventually. What do you think about that?
No, I don't think I can teach. Yes, of course, but I'd rather write a book one day. Wow. If you ask me what I would like to do eventually, one day I would maybe, if I have the time, I would like to sit down and write something, write a book on some of the areas of the law which I'm passionate about.
Do you have an idea of the title of the book?
Not yet. I've got so many ideas in my mind, but one day.
Looking forward to it.
That's something I would love to do.
Do you have any closing thoughts for our audience here today?
Oh, I'm not sure who's watching, but thank you all for watching. To me, today I was asked to come and give you a little of an insight to my personal life. So as to why I became a lawyer and where I am today. It's by no means and a start to an end. It's daily. As a lawyer, you improve on a daily basis. You have to continue, whether you're an in-house lawyer, practicing lawyer, or a corporate conveyancing lawyer, you have to be able to say, I'm learning every other day. I've been in practice 30 years. Every day I learn something new. Not just from myself, I learn it from you guys too. My juniors, we learn.
Yeah.
And we have to accept that. That is part and parcel of who we are as lawyers. So to me, young lawyers, never think you are a specialist just because you worked 2 years in a law firm doing certain things. Always be able to keep an open mind. Number two, I have this strong thoughts that people opening law firms at a very young age is going to be a problem eventually. You know, you can't just open a law firm for a short-term project, which is happening a lot. You see it today after COVID, that 30%, 40% of the small law firms are shutting down because there's no more business. So it was very much short-term thinking that caused this problem. You know, so and very many of them are very young lawyers. Why don't you learn your trade? Why don't you learn everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, and then set yourself up later? If that is your ambition and that is your calling, then you set up your firm. My advice is don't rush into things. Don't rush into opening the business because you see your friend has done it, so I can do it. But think about it. Think about it long term rather than short term. Because once you drop, it's very hard to get up and come out of it, you know. So we have to be very careful. Young lawyers, the millennials especially, you know, you have to don't rush. It's not a rat race to be successful. It comes to you if you deserve it, and you practice it in the most honest and with integrity.
Yeah, I think that's all the time we have. But
Oh,
I mean,
I've spoken so much.
1 hour flies by, you know.
Yeah.
Feels like 10 minutes. You know.
We'll do a second session sometime soon.
We could definitely go on, but I think you can save it for a new topic.
Okay.
And I think I learned so much just sitting here.
Yeah, thank you, Dato, for taking your time and sharing everything with us.
No problem. If you need me to come back and speak on something else, I will.
We'll probably do another session.
Just learned by diffusion, you know. I concentrate, not concentrate. But it was an amazing time. Thank you everyone for tuning in.
Thank you.
And that wraps up our October series. We are taking next week off, but you can come back on the second week of November, and we'll be back with webinars. And we have an amazing lineup for November. We're looking forward to see you all soon. And that's it from us. Take care.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Take care.